Some say love is the greatest blessing the gods ever gave humanity. But the people of Nemera know another truth, that when love is twisted by fear, it becomes the very weapon that destroys the soul. In the heart of this town, one woman's yearning to be loved became a curse that would echo across generations. Her name was Amora. And before we dive into her story, kindly subscribe, like and share. Amora grew up believing in fairy tales, that love, once found, never fades. She was kind, graceful, and the envy of many, not for her beauty alone, but for her heart that believed in forever. Kenny was her first love, a young entrepreneur, ambitious and charming, whose laughter once made her world feel alive. For years, their bond was unshakable. But time has a way of testing even the purest hearts. As Kenny's success grew, his world changed. His attention drifted. He began to crave excitement, and Amora, gentle, traditional, content, became a memory of who he used to be. Amora noticed it, the fading text, the distant eyes, the lies marked as excuses. Each day, she loved harder. Each night, he pulled farther away. Love, once her comfort, became her torment. In her loneliness, Amora turned to her friend Gozi, who whispered about a woman said to fix broken hearts with the touch of the ancestors. The woman lived at the far edge of town, Mama Eid, a name that traveled in silence. At first, Amara resisted. But heartbreak has its own way of calling upon the unseen. One moonless night, she walked the narrow path through the forest, where fireflies floated like lost souls and the wind carried distant chants. Inside the hut, smoke curled from a pot of herbs. Feathers and bones hung like charms of warning. Mama had looked into her eyes and saw what Amora had become, a woman drowning in love. She warned her gently. Love taken by force is no blessing, child. It is a debt the gods always collect. But grief deafens the heart. Amora pleaded until the woman, with pity, handed her a small vial, a love potion, deep crimson like the dying sun. 3 drops, she said. Only 3. On the night he drinks it, the spirit of desire will bind your hearts forever. But fate was already listening. The next evening, Amora followed the instructions. Kenny visited, distracted, impatient, and as they shared dinner, she dropped 3 shimmering drops into his drink. He smiled. Drank. And for a while, nothing happened. Then, slowly, something changed. He began to look at her as if seeing her for the first time. The next day, he called more often, stayed longer, touched her like he couldn't bear to lose her again. Amora's world bloomed anew. The town spoke of their rekindled love, 2 souls reunited by fate. She didn't know that what she had rekindled was not love, but possession. Soon, Kenny's affection became something darker. He no longer wanted her to go anywhere without him. He questioned her every movement. When she smiled at others, his eyes turned cold. His sleep became restless. He began to wake at odd hours, muttering strange things. Sometimes, he would stare at her for hours, expressionless, unblinking, as if watching something beyond her. Neighbors began to whisper. They said the couple's home carried a strange aura, laughter in empty rooms, flickering lights, shadows that lingered too long. At first, Amara dismissed it as stress. But one night, she found symbols scratched into the wooden floor near their bed, symbols that glowed faintly under candlelight. And she began to realize something unseen had entered their lives. Fear drove Amara back to Mama Eid, clutching the empty vial. The old woman's face darkened when Amara revealed the night she had used it, the night of the blood moon. The blood moon, Mama Eid explained, corrupts all charms. It bends love spells into death bonds, fusing souls through pain, not passion. You have tied your spirits together, she said. His life now beats with yours. If one perishes, both will fall. Amara begged for a solution, but the woman shook her head. Once the ancestors have been summoned in envy, only sacrifice can undo what's done. Amara returned home shaken, unaware that her own reflection would soon begin whispering back to her. Kenny's transformation deepened. He began seeing figures, dark silhouettes standing behind Amara, whispering her name. He accused her of hiding spirits in their house. The once joyful home became a war zone of paranoia. One night, he attacked his reflection in the mirror, screaming that someone else was living inside him. Amara watched helplessly as the man she loved unraveled before her eyes. She tried to pray, but the walls whispered back. And then came the night of the storm. Kenny ran out into the rain, barefoot and trembling, shouting Amara's name like a curse. Lightning flashed across the riverbank, and by dawn, he was gone. They found his body in the water, eyes wide, mouth frozen mid-sentence, fingers clutching the earth as if fighting to stay in this world. The funeral was quiet, but the air around Amara was thick with fear. People avoided her gaze. Even her family kept their distance. But the real nightmare began when night fell. Kenny's voice began to whisper in her ear, first faint, then clear. Mirrors no longer reflected her alone. Sometimes she felt someone breathing beside her. Her dreams replayed their memories, except in every one, Kenny's eyes were hollow and black. She tried to move on, to travel, to heal, but everywhere she went, strange accidents followed. Every man who tried to love her met tragedy, one car crash, one mysterious illness, one madness. Kenny's love had become her prison. Years later, on a night eerily like the one that began it all, the blood moon returned. The town grew silent, animals refused to leave their shelters. That night, Amara felt the air shift, heavy, electric. Candles flickered out, and the temperature dropped. When she looked into the mirror, Kenny's reflection smiled back. He was there, not as memory, but presence. He spoke without words, his gaze commanding, his touch as cold as wind through a grave. Every corner of her home filled with whispers. The floorboards creaked with unseen footsteps. The bond had reawakened, the dead calling to the living. Amara, desperate and broken, sought Mama Eid one final time. The woman, now blind and frail, waited as though she had foreseen the visit. Her voice was barely a whisper. You asked for love eternal, and the spirits answered. Now they ask for balance. To break the bond, you must give what you love most. Amara understood, it meant her life. That night, dressed in white, she wrote a letter. A confession, a warning, and a plea for forgiveness. Then she walked to the river, barefoot, as dawn painted the sky in red. The same river that took Tond awaited her. She whispered, "I only wanted to be loved," and stepped into the current. The river accepted her. The wind stilled. And beneath the water, two shadows merged, one male, one female, holding hands, drifting into silence. The next morning, fishermen found her white cloth floating where the water glowed faintly red. No body. No footprints. Only calmness and silence. They say that ever since that night, when the blood moon rises, the river shimmers like liquid fire, and a woman's laughter echoes across the water, soft, haunting, eternal. Some say she finally found peace. Others believe she became the river itself, watching, warning, waiting. The elders of Nemera tell her story not as horror, but as a lesson. A reminder that love is not to be forced, and that the heart of another is sacred ground not to be conquered. For love taken by force becomes scarce. And love held too tightly will one day crush the hands that cling to it. So if ever you find yourself standing under the red moon, longing for someone who has left, remember Amora's tale. Remember what the river took. And remember this. True love is not possession. It is freedom. And those who forget that truth will drown trying to hold on.